ABC Listen. Podcasts, radio, news, music and more.
Big day, mate, big day. So I've got to carry the boats. Ready to go, mate. So I haven't sunk piss all weekend, so I'm due.
That was Bailey Smith at the Cats' Mad Monday celebrations earlier this week. This was before he faced claims of homophobia for some questionable Instagram posts involving him and club captain Patrick Dangerfield. This is not the first time a footy club has found trouble while attempting to celebrate the end of a season. Do you remember the Giants fiasco from Check's Notes last year? And the latest situation in Geelong has us wondering a few things. Among them, is Mad Monday really worth it in 2025? I'm Patrick Stack. This is ABC Sport Daily. Marnie Vinall reports on Aussie rules and other things for ABC Sport. Marnie, Mad Monday season is upon us. The footy industry has long lionised Geelong Footy Club's execution of this ritual. Why is the Cats' Mad Monday particularly a thing? And why did they maybe fail to land the plane this week, I think it's fair to say?
Yes, the Cats have long prided themselves on accessibility to their postseason celebrations, so their Mad Mondays, and this is something that they've really courted attention on, and players seem to have loved it. I mean, do you remember when they won the premiership in 2023, and then they all went as elderly men, because the kind of tag they had through that season was that they were too old and too slow, and then they won the premiership, and so they had a lot of fun with it, and the journos had fun with it, and fans had fun with it.
I think you're gonna hold it.
But it is unusual for the public to get such access to Mad Monday celebrations. And this is now the second year in a row that a particular club's Mad Monday celebrations have put them in a lot of hot water. We know that GWS were in the headlines last year, and I'm sure we will get to that. And this year it is Geelong. At the centre of all of this is their star, Bailey Smith.
Here we go, mate. Ready to pin the ears back.
He joked constantly online on his Instagram that he needed to put his phone away, because I think it is fair to say that he knew that the posts that he were putting up with the captions that he were putting up were provocative. You had Max Holmes go as respected award-winning journalist Caroline Wilson. This is not a new thing that Holmes has done. He's recently gone as Mitch Cleary from Channel 7, and he's gone as Gerard Whateley. But then Bailey Smith put it on Instagram with a caption that said, "Carrie's never looked better," with a water emoji, kind of like a squirting emoji. And if you're under the age of 30, that emoji is used for a particular thing. And so there is an underlying bout of sexism that you could make a case for with that particular caption. And the conversations that I had with a lot of people within the industry was, if those are the jokes that are being made publicly, you can imagine the jokes that are being made privately, especially about a woman journalist. There's not many of us, and that does sit quite uncomfortably in the belly. Kane Corns, who's a long-time colleague of Cara, he had some very strong comments.
Imagine Max Holmes thinking it's a good idea to disrespect a legend of Australian football media, really, in Caroline Wilson, and dressing up as her and trying to ridicule her and have a photo of that and put the caption alongside of that. I thought it was as embarrassing a day and Geelong haven't had many missteps, certainly off-field, for a fair amount of time. I thought that was one of the more embarrassing days at the Geelong Footy Club that I've seen in a while.
You also then had Bailey Smith posting a photo with him and Patrick Dangerfield with a caption that referenced Brokeback Mountain, and the caption said, "This is what losing a granny does to you." And so there were people that didn't sit particularly well with, particularly within the queer AFL community, because it felt like they were using queerness as a punchline to a joke.
Yeah, that particular post drew maybe the most criticism or the most focus. And you touched on Kane Corn's scathing rebuke regarding Caroline Wilson. Who were some of the voices or people that we heard about in terms of the gay and bi community who were, I guess, a little bit concerned by what was posted by Bailey Smith featuring him and Patrick Dangerfield?
The one that has got the most attention is Mitch Brown. So Mitch Brown was the first player to publicly come out as bisexual. He used to play for the West Coast Eagles, and he put on his own Instagram, kind of taking a bit of a joke that Heath Ledger was hotter than Bailey Smith, but he then added, in all seriousness, guys do better. Last time I checked, losing a grand final doesn't make you gay, but being homophobic definitely makes you a loser. And you can imagine that a lot of different outlets ran with that, and then that created discourse that furthered the conversation. You then had the CEO of Pride Cup, Hayley Conway.
First reaction to that is just how disappointing it is to see people using the experiences of gay and bisexual men, which is what the film Brokeback Mountain is about, as a punchline in a joke when they should be out celebrating what was a pretty terrific season for the Geelong Cats.
So there was just a lot of different conversations that were sparked, and some people were really strong. There was a lot of fans online saying that they didn't think what Smith and Dangerfield did was homophobic, but there was a lot of conversations saying that queerness is constantly used as a joke and a punchline within the AFL sphere, especially because we've never had a current openly gay or bisexual player, and a lot of people, particularly Brown this year, saying it's not a safe place in order for people to come out, and they see particular moments like the caption of Smith saying this is what a losing a granny does to you as reasons for it not being a safe place yet.
I feel like the footy media machine has a bit of a role in this. I mean, has the industry not been sort of egging on this tradition for years, particularly at Geelong, as you kind of touched on? I mean, they've had some moments that have been lapped up over the years. What kind of responsibility do the media carry for sort of, I guess, placing a framework for something like this to happen in?
It's a great question. And I've been inside newsrooms for the past 4 years where there's kind of a sense of to find out where clubs are having their particular Mad Mondays, to find out what people are going as, because they know that the public absolutely lap it up and there are storylines to have. And historically there has been a lot of fun, but there's also been a lot of controversial moments, and that can create a whole different story, a whole different dialogue, and different clubs approach it very differently. I mean, the Brisbane Lions this year, after winning their premiership, they arrived at their Mad Monday celebrations with all of their costumes in plastic bags. So no media could see what they were dressing up as, which is a very different approach to obviously Geelong's. But we know that media stand out the front of these celebrations. We know that they tried to find out what the Lions were doing inside their Mad Monday. So it's not as if the media are just leaving these clubs and players alone. But then I think there is also an argument that good journalism uncovers bad behaviour within systems. And if players are doing things behind closed doors that they shouldn't, like we saw with GWS last year, the public do have a right to know about that.
You mentioned the GWS Giants. Obviously, Geelong have found themselves in bother this year. I feel like there's an interesting question to be asked in terms of whether or not Mad Mondays in 2025, the juice is worth the squeeze if you're a football club.
It's going to be so interesting to see how this develops. As you mentioned, GWS, I mean, they had 6 players suspended last year and 7 more that were fined for their conduct at their end of season function. And so you can imagine if you are a club CEO or a board member, you're probably on the side of let's not let media into Mad Mondays. Let's try and limit this as much as possible. I mean, AFL GM of football, Greg Swan, said today that the AFL were not impressed.
We think the clubs are the best people to deal with it. They're their players, and I think Steve's, we're not thrilled, obviously, with what happened, and nor are Geelong. So they're going to take some steps. I think there'll be something coming out this afternoon around that, and we've pushed it down to them to deal with. So we've had some good chats to them about that.
You can imagine there's a pretty strong push from a club level that maybe the juice is not worth the squeeze. And I also think that there is a disconnect between the way that players interact with each other, just in terms of the banter that they have in the public eye and what seasoned journalists and media are used to. I think a really good example is Jack Ginnivan. When he posted on Brodie Grundy's Instagram after the Sydney Swans won their final to go into a prelim, he said, "I'll see you in 14 days." The media really took that moment as a young player being publicly disrespectful and not following the code of conduct that we're used to. But this is also a player in his young 20s responding to a friend. And so if you have all these players that are constantly used to sharing their lives publicly, there is going to be that constant, I guess, coming up against what the systems deem as acceptable behaviour and just what we're now seeing from young players.
The final other interesting part of this conversation has been the reception of Mitch Brown's comments, just to return to those. I mean, when he made the decision to come out as bisexual, you and I spoke on the day about the fact his life was never going to be the same. And I think what we meant by that is that every time there was a story in the homophobia, biphobia space like this, his response would be news, and that would also draw a response, and that response would draw a response, and so on. What are we seeing on that front?
It's honestly been one of the most fascinating things for me to watch, because immediately you had a lot of fan reaction saying he's being a bit attention-seeking, always weighing in to these topics, when he just posted on his own Instagram his thoughts, something that I'm sure he was doing before he came out, just over a month ago. But now, by him saying anything involving homophobia or queerphobia or biphobia within the AFL, that in itself becomes its own story. And I saw, particularly on Twitter, a lot of people saying, okay, you've had your 5 minutes of fame. But then I saw on Instagram, there were all of these threads really backing up what he said, and then Reddit kind of took on a life of its own in its discourse. And the Mitch Brown comments almost became their own story. And there was a lot of discourse around, well, yeah, this is why it took so long for a player in the AFL system to come out. And you can imagine that it's a big deterrent from any more for coming out, because then everything that they say carries so much more weight. I kind of want to push back against the public rhetoric that him saying anything is attention-seeking, because it's the attention that we're giving him. He's now in the limelight for all of these issues, whether he likes it or not.
Absolutely fascinating. Marnie, thanks for pulling it all apart. Appreciate your time.
Thanks, Jackie.
A quick note before headlines. As you heard from Greg Swan on the AFL in that conversation, we are expecting some sort of statement from Geelong. Nothing has dropped at time of publish. Keep an eye on the ABC website for all the updated news. Headlines. The AFL has killed the centre bounce. It will no longer feature in Aussie rules after being part of the sport for 100 years plus. Why? Among the reasons is the belief it will reduce game delays and also help grow the number of umpires coming through the system. Basically, it's a hard skill set to execute, and it minimises an already somewhat shallow talent pool. Any other changes, you ask? Yes, the sub is gone in 2026. Instead, the bench will grow to 5. In other news, expansion team Tasmania has been handed a raft of concessions designed to get them competitive ASAP. That includes draft picks number 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11 and 13, and the first selection of each subsequent round in their first draft, which is expected to be in 2027 ahead of their AFL debut in 2028. Now, 5, 7, 11 and 13, they actually must be traded as a way of enticing the club to attract experienced players. Then there's the money component. They've been allocated a $5 million signing bonus pool. To understand all of that fully, check the ABC Sport website. Cricket, where Australia begins its Women's ODI World Cup campaign against New Zealand tonight in India. It's a fascinating tournament for the Aussies. Not since 1988 has a nation gone back-to-back in the event. Australia's hoping to change that. You have veterans like Elise Perry and captain Elisa Healy, guns like Beth Mooney, Annabelle Sutherland, spinner Alana King, and emerging talents like Phoebe Litchfield. You can catch it all on the ABC Listen app. Just look for the pink button and get live coverage from 7:30pm Eastern. In the WNBA, there is mutiny brewing between the players and management. Star player Nafisa Collier has delivered a stinging takedown of League Commissioner Kathy Engelbert after her team, Minnesota, was eliminated from the playoffs. Collier has been critical on the referees and general lack of accountability, as well as indicating that head office does not value its stars like Caitlin Clark.
I also asked how she planned to fix the fact that players like Caitlin, Angel, and Paige, who are clearly driving massive revenue for the league, are making so little for their first 4 years. Her response was, Caitlin should be grateful she makes $16 million off the court, because without the platform that the WNBA gives her, she wouldn't make anything. And in that same conversation, she told me players should be on their knees thanking their lucky stars for the media rights deal that I got them. That's a mentality driving our league from the top. We go to battle every day to protect a shield that doesn't value us.
Wow. I'm Patrick Stack. This is ABC Sport Daily, produced by Poppy Penny. Thanks to Channel 7 and AFL Trade Radio for the extra audio used in this episode.
Discover more great ABC podcasts, live radio and exclusives on the ABC Listen app.